If you've been wanting to create mosaic coasters but weren't quite sure how to start, this video is for you. In today's video, you'll learn how to create sleek, modern-looking mosaic coasters without any tile cutting. And the best part is, it takes a little over an hour and all ages can do it. Are you ready? Let's get to it. Welcome, friends. If you're new here, my name is Julie, and for over 20 years, I have owned a mosaic art and lifestyle studio here in Miami, Florida. I create art for clients as well as teach students just like you how to create beautiful mosaics for your home, family, and friends. On this channel, we'll discuss tips, tools, techniques, and materials with the occasional vlog, so if that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing. Now let's talk mosaics. As I mentioned, this is a great beginner, all ages project. And even though there's no tile cutting involved, you'll still dip your toes into the world of mosaic art. Along the way, we'll discuss tips and tricks on how to do things correctly. And the best part is, you'll walk away feeling confident to tackle that first mosaic project. And since this is an all ages project, I have my son Owen here today.
Hi.
And honestly, these mosaic coasters are projects that he's been commissioned to create, and we thought it would be fun to take you along to show you the process. Before we start, it's important to mention that you don't want to wear your best clothes when you're creating mosaic art. It's not that materials and adhesives and everything are going to go flying, but you just want to be aware in case accidents happen. So to begin, let's discuss the materials. Everything that we will discuss today will be listed down below in the show notes. I won't go over everything since some of the materials don't need explaining, but I wanted to list everything so that you have a complete guide once you begin your project. First up is our tile base, or our substrate, and it's just a thin metal coaster. What I like about it is that the sides come up, so your tile fits inside and then you grout over the top, and it creates this really nice flush finish. One word of caution is that the sides can be a little rough, so if you have little ones, be aware. Our tile is recycled glass, and what I love about it is the wide range of colors that it comes in. Sometimes it comes on mesh, and sometimes it comes individual. It's 1 inch square by 3/16 inch thick, which means it fits perfectly into our metal substrate. The colors we're using today are the colors that Owen's clients have requested. Owen's clients, how cool is that? The adhesive we're using for this project is called Weld Bond. It comes in a variety of size bottles, and it's a white PVA glue that dries clear and has a very firm hold. We'll be using it later in our project as well, so stay tuned for that. The last primary material that we will be using in our project is sanded grout, but we'll discuss that more in depth later in the video when we're ready to grout our projects. Okay, now that we've discussed our substrate, our tile, our adhesive, and our grout, now we're ready to begin. But first things first, you want to protect the furniture that you're working on. What I always do is I lay out a piece of brown craft paper. It's a little thicker, and should the adhesive drip, it won't bleed through to my work surface. Before we start putting down the adhesive, you'll want to lay out your tiles in the substrate, which is what Owen is doing here. For Owen's design, he doesn't want two of the same colors to be next to each other. So he's laying out the tiles and making sure that they lay flat within the substrate, because remember, this is a coaster and we want a level surface. So once you're happy with the design that you came up with, you want to start taking your tiles out of your substrate exactly in the order and direction as what you laid out in your substrate. Sometimes these tiles can be manufactured a little differently, and it can mess up your grout line. So you just want to take the tiles out, lay them out onto your surface, your work surface, and get ready to glue them down. So now we're ready to start gluing down our pieces. We have 3 options on how we're going to get the adhesive onto the tile. Our first option is to pour the glue into our substrate. Now, sometimes you can get too much glue onto your substrate and then the glue will come up between your tiles, which you don't want because you want to protect that grout line. Your second option is to pour the weld bond directly to the back of the tile. Again, you can overdo it and then have the glue come up between your tile pieces and you're not protecting that grout line. The third option is to pour a little bit of glue onto a scrap piece of glass or some plastic food wrap and then butter it on using a craft stick. Since you're our guest of honor, which option would you like us to do today?
I think that we should go with the first option.
The first option? Yeah. Okay. So the first option again is that we're going to pour our glue directly into the substrate. I'm going to put the glue into the substrate and you can start tiling and then I'll join you in a minute, okay?
Alright, sounds good.
Okay. That looks pretty good. You want to make sure that you get enough glue into your substrate that each tile will touch the glue, obviously, but you don't want too much glue that it might come up between the tiles. Weld Bond is a very forgiving glue. In some cases, it's actually a quick drying glue. You do have some wiggle room, but you don't want to pour your glue out and then come back in an hour because it may not be where you want it to be. It may have dried too much by the time you come back. You just put your tiles in. Don't worry so much about tiles touching right now. You just want to get the tiles in the substrate, and then once you get all the tiles in, then you can start moving things around to create a little bit of a grout line. And you see how quick this goes. This is the quickest method as far as getting the glue onto the back of the tiles. And I can see here, we have a little bit too much glue. So let me show you how to do that. You're going to take your toothpick and just run it through there. And you want to make sure that you get it cleaned off really well because this is your grout line and you want to protect your grout line. And sometimes you can move the tiles away from each other and suddenly the glue recedes and your grout line reappears. Okay, and I'm gonna hand that over to you. Do you have any, you've got some spots here that need a little bit of cleaning out. So we're just gently running a toothpick along the edge of the tile to clean off the extra adhesive. Okay, looking good. Okay, and we have one more, buddy.
Yes.
All right. You want to help me out with this, bud?
Sure.
Okay, remember you want to keep them in the same order and direction since that's how you got them to fit initially. Dun dun dun. Did you forget your order?
I forgot if
Dun,
that
dun,
one
dun.
or that one.
Well,
I think that that's what
They fit. They fit. So you're okay. These are mine. 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 Okay. All yours.
Go poking up on thing.
Okay. I'm just gonna make sure.
Yeah, we have a couple here.
So buddy, as I'm cleaning up, just go through and separate your pieces and try to get a little bit of a grout line. And also make sure that your pieces are as straight vertically as they are horizontally. Because after we grout, your grout line will be where the eye naturally goes, where it follows.
Right. Alright.
Okay. Some of them have a little more wiggle room than others and they sometimes get a little crooked. And you just want to make sure that everything is straight vertically as well as horizontally. So they all are cleaned up, they all look good, all the tiles are flat. And so now we are just going to let them sit for 24 hours to dry, and then we can grout after that. Before we get started with grouting, please hit the like button if you're getting value out of this video. Thanks. Okay, it's been 24 hours, and before we start grouting, we need to check to make sure our glass pieces are firm and not going anywhere and just really glued down. So we just feel around, make sure that they're in place, everything feels good, nothing is moving. Now at this point, should you discover that a tile is loose, just take it out, put a little bit of weld bond on the back, put it back in place, and wait a few hours before you grout. Before we start mixing the grout, we do want to protect the back surface of our coasters. It's made out of a shiny metal, and the grout will scratch it up. So what we're gonna do is we're going to cut out just a piece of copy paper in a square to cover the back of our metal coasters. Ready, bud?
Yeah.
I'm applying the painter's tape to the edge of the substrate, and as I'm going around each side of the substrate, I'm including the piece of copy paper that we previously cut. And you want to make sure that the tape does not go over the front of your substrate where we will be tiling. You just want to make sure it stays on the edge and the back of the substrate. It's a tedious process, probably the most tedious of this project, but it's essential so that we can protect the back of the substrate to keep it as shiny and silvery as possible. And as you can tell, we've covered our work surface now with newspaper. Normally, if I was using a lighter grout, newspaper wouldn't be the best option because sometimes it can transfer onto your artwork, but we're going to be using a dark gray grout, and so the newspaper is fine. So now that we're done taping up the back of our coasters, we've covered up our tabletop with newspaper, we're ready to start mixing grout. We're going to use sanded grout today as opposed to non-sanded grout. As you can see, I have a very big bag of grout, but I've linked below in the show notes smaller bags of grout. And we're going to use charcoal gray grout, but grout comes in all sorts of colors, from off-white, white, wheat, blue, light gray, black, you name it. I'm using charcoal gray grout because, number one, it goes beautifully with the colors of our tile, but also because we're making a utilitarian item. We want to make sure that the grout doesn't get stained. Remember, it might come in contact with red wine, sodas, fruit juice, coffee, tea. All of those things leave messes and can stain. So the charcoal gray grout is going to be our little friend here, and it's going to cover up anything that might get on it. So now is the time for us to put on our disposable gloves and get to mixing up some grout. Now, a couple things to keep in mind with grout. It is dusty. It's made up of finely ground silica sand. You don't want to breathe it in. So if you have little ones helping you today, this is the part where the adults need to mix up the grout and then bring the kids back in. Which means at this point, you get to take a 5-minute break, buddy. Okay? You're welcome. We're using a plastic disposable cup for mixing the grout. You can also use a bowl, but make sure it's not like something you treasure, or you could use a cottage cheese container as long as it's cleaned out thoroughly. So what we have here is a disposable measuring cup. It's about 3 tablespoons in measurement, and we just want to spray with water as we're putting it in, dumping it in, to try and keep the dust factor down. Now, because we don't need a lot of grout, we don't need a lot of water, at least to begin with. So roughly put in about a tablespoon of water, and I'm just gonna spray the water into here because the consistency we're looking for is like cookie dough. And again, because we're not making a lot of grout, I'm just not going to measure in the water. But if you feel like you need to measure, it's 3 tablespoons of the dry grout and 1 tablespoon of water. I should also mention you should have a mask on because you don't want to breathe this in. And this is looking really good. So once it gets to the consistency you're looking for, just let it sit for 10 minutes so that the water and the grout can react together. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes and our grout is ready. We just want to do one final stir just to make sure it's still the consistency of cookie dough. If it isn't, just go ahead and add a little bit more water, one more stir, and you should be ready to go. Besides the grout, we also have paper towels, we have some toothpicks, we have some craft sticks, and we also have our weld bond, just in case we pop off a tile. So you ready, bud?
Yeah.
All right. So we put a little bit of grout onto the surface of our tiles. And what we're gonna do is we're going to keep our hands flat and we're gonna rub counterclockwise and clockwise and counterclockwise and clockwise. And we're pushing, basically pushing the grout into the joints, and it's creating that grout line, right? So let's try it out, bud. And you don't want to push so hard that you dislodge a tile. I mean, weld bond is pretty firm, kind of hard to dislodge something that has weld bond, but sometimes accidents can happen. And then you just want to make sure, go over the area again and just make sure that there is grout in all your joints. I like to try to do a lot of the cleaning off with my hands. And then moving on to the next one. How are you doing over there? Oh, looking good. Looking good. You want to do this last one? Okay. There you go. We really don't have a whole lot of grout left in here, but we're going to keep it close by in case during cleanup, we discover that some grout has been dislodged. Now that our coasters are done, we're going to let them sit here for about 10 minutes to dry. Okay, so we've waited 10 minutes and our coasters aren't totally dry, but they've dried a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and start cleaning off. Now, I like to clean off a small project like this with paper towels. I don't get a sponge. I don't introduce more water into this. So what we do is exactly how we grouted. We do clockwise, counterclockwise, and we're just sort of cleaning off the surface area of each tile. You want to push down to get the surface area clean, but you don't want to push down so hard that you dislodge a tile. I can't imagine that happening because weld bond is so strong, but sometimes it can happen. You want to clean off the surface of the tiles, making sure that all of the edges are exposed. And if your paper towel gets really dirty and you feel like you're just rubbing a bunch of mess around and it just keeps getting messy and messy, get yourself a new paper towel. Okay, this one is looking pretty good. Awesome. Okay, why don't you do this one, bud? At this point, should you knock out a piece of grout, all you have to do is just go right back into your extra grout, put some grout into the area that you knocked out, and then let it sit for about 10 minutes and then go back over it and clean it off. And now we'll let them sit for a little bit longer. What we want to do is just periodically keep checking to see if a grout haze has formed. If a grout haze starts to form, it's a little cloudy, just go back over it with the paper towel, clean it off, and you're going to do this for about an hour, and you just want to make sure that the grout haze doesn't form. Our coasters have been sitting here for quite a while and they're looking really good. No grout haze has formed. So we are ready to get to unveiling the back. And at this point, you can throw away your excess grout. You don't need it anymore. Do not throw it down your kitchen sink or your bathroom sink, your bathtub. Do not do anything with the grout besides throw it in the garbage, because obviously it's cement based and it will clog up your pipes. So this is the exciting part. We're going to start taking the tape off the back of our coasters and unveiling an almost finished product. How you doing over there? Good? Oh yeah? Ooh. There we go. Oh, I thought I did. Thanks, dude. Okay, so what you want to do at this point is just take a clean paper towel and you just want to rub along the outside of your coaster, and you'll see that there may be a little bit of grout that got through between the tape and the paper, and so you just want to clean it off, a light dusting, and then and then set it to the side. Did I scare you? Yeah. All right, and then set it to the side. You do that one, okay? Okay, our coasters are ready for Owen to sign. He's just going to write his signature as close to the edge as possible because we have a little something to put on the back after that. So what we have here are just some 3 1/4 inch felt. And we cut them from a sheet of very inexpensive felt. And what we want to do is we're going to glue them on the back over these little feet of the coaster to protect the surface of your furniture. Ready, bud? Okay. I'm putting this on with a craft stick as opposed to squeezing it on because I don't want the layer of glue to be too thick. And so I'm able to put on a thin layer of the weld bond and it will form a nice edge. There you go, buddy. And what Owen's doing is just centering it over the back and going over his edges to make sure everything is stuck down. And then it'll just sit there and dry. You want to make sure that your name is seen because, of course, got to sign your artwork. I really think these make a great gift. They're finished off. They're so sleek. They take almost, what, an hour? And all ages can participate, which is really nice for families. They're simple enough that you could make one, or if you have a little more time, you could make a set of 4, which is also really nice. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you got value out of this video, please hit the like button as it really does help my channel. And I hope you'll consider subscribing and ringing the bell notification so that you know every time when I upload a new video. And if there's something you'd like to see, please leave a comment down below of any future videos I could maybe do. Owen, did you have fun today?
Yeah.
Your commissions look great, buddy. Your clients are going to be so happy with the results. Thank you for joining me here. Hi. All right. Cut. And that's not what we're going to do. What I like about it is that I don't know. Now that we've discussed our substrate, our we're going to use charcoal gray grout. And I'll start with gray grout. Now the all right.